Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Meet the Experts. In this episode, I will be interviewing Dr. Katie Suleta, a public health researcher and scientific writer. We will be talking about social media health literacy for teens. What are some current situations where teenagers are being misled through social media regarding health?
Such a good question. I think there isn't a spot in health that isn't kind of being fed misinformation right now. People, especially teenagers that are on TikTok, and that's really, really big. And health misinformation is rampant on TikTok, and it really kind of comes down to who do you follow. And kind of, I'm sure everybody has been told about echo chambers and how those echo chambers can reinforce some bad ideas and then also bad beliefs for people. And once you're kind of within an echo chamber, it's hard to break. And so I really feel like there's just no particular area of health that it doesn't touch. And I feel like for teenagers in particular, a lot of the stuff that y'all are being fed is probably a lot of like diet and nutrition stuff.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of body image stuff, right? Around like, oh, you want to look a certain way, and here's how you should eat or not eat. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going on right now, and I think skinny talk is quite bad. Is very popular right now too, right? So that's like really hitting a lot of teenagers and a lot of young people in general. And I think that area in particular is probably one of the ones that I spend the most time thinking about when it comes to teens and then health misinformation. Although there are others as well, but I'm guessing that's probably a big one for a lot of you.
Yes. How can we address like the rise of AI generated health content on social media?
So I think one of the dying arts of the internet that was very popular with my generation, but isn't as much so now, is whenever you see something, Google it or not Google it. Use whatever search engine you want, but definitely look it up on the internet to see if you can find other sources that make the same claims or that back it up, right? Instead of just kind of feeling like this person has good vibes. This feels right to me. Go ahead and just give it a cursory, throw it in the search engine and see what it pops back. Because it's often pretty easy to debunk some of this stuff or to find, say, news articles or some sort of article that has covered it in good length that will then give you better information about what the thing is that you're saying. Because a lot of what's driving social media isn't good information. It's clicks, it's views, it's the things that are going to make people watch, which is not necessarily accurate information. It's more of the, oh, get a load of this. This is crazy. This is all about trying to make people angry or feel a certain way, and therefore it's the more outlandish stuff gets more views, more clicks, and gets more attention. But that stuff is not necessarily accurate. So go ahead and throw it into a search engine and see what you can find on it. If you can't find a whole lot of corroborating evidence, or if you can only find stuff where people are talking about how it's kind of bogus, probably a pretty good indicator that you probably shouldn't believe it.
Yeah. Any other steps that teenagers can take to avoid misinformation online or to follow more influencers or people that truly know like their medical science and medical background instead of just like spreading rumors and myths that are not true?
One of the best ways is obviously to Google, but then also stop and think about what the content is saying to you. If it's making you feel a certain way, like triggered, angry, or bad about yourself, really stop and think about if that content is something that you should be watching. It might be popular, it might be interesting, it might be any of these things, but if it specifically makes you feel a certain way and a negative emotion, like bad about yourself or angry or something, there's a good chance that it was created to make you feel that way and not necessarily to give you good information. So I think being more self-aware, which can be really hard, because emotions can feel really overwhelming, and so it's hard. It's hard even as I sit here as an adult and tell you check your emotions. I don't even do that all the time. It's really hard for adults to do it, but I think that's also a really good literal gut check of check in with yourself and see how you're feeling about what you're watching. If it's something that makes you feel bad about yourself or makes you angry, that's probably a really good indicator that you should probably be Googling it or just sign off of that. Just sign off of whatever it is that you're watching. Don't subscribe, whatever it might be, and try to go somewhere else. As far as like good, what's a sign of a good influencer to follow? People, that's such a hard question to answer. people that tend to fall in, I guess, people that go with what a body of evidence says, which sounds like a really complex thing, but not kind of the people that are not edgy are usually the people that you want to follow. The edgier somebody is, probably what they're trying to do is get attention, but not distribute good information, right? Good information is often really boring, and that kind of sucks because then we are paying the price if we don't get as many likes, we don't get as many clicks, we don't get very many follows. But it is more like the more boring something is, honestly, in some ways, it's another good gut check because that means that people aren't trying to be inflammatory. They're just trying to give you broad brushstrokes. This is kind of how you should be thinking about it, right? So I think those are kind of the fast ways to think about who you might be following on any of your socials. There's obviously some bigger stuff that you can do, but I think that probably encompasses a whole chunk of very quick things that people can do to just kind of think about who it is that they're following and the content that they're consuming.
Yeah. Sometimes social media can be a great tool, such as there's this thing going on like body positivity and mental health. How can we use such good factors of social media to promote good like media literacy for health for teens?
There's actually quite a few tools out there on social media around, say, critical thinking and how to be more critical of the things that you are watching. And so some of the things that I've talked about here today of like making sure that you're self-aware about how something's making you feel, doing a quick cross check and Googling something, those are really basic kind of critical thinking steps that people can take to gut check and to also double check any information that they are consuming. When it comes to using social media, there are a lot of influencers that do actually promote critical thinking skills. So following people like that, but then also, teens getting more involved in kind of taking back the online space so that it's not just flooded with AI slop and inflammatory stuff that's not actually true, right? We can take these spaces back, and I think teens play a really big part in that because that is mostly where you all are. You're online, and a lot of us are not as online as teens are. Actually, most of us aren't, right? And so I think it's really important for teens to start taking some of that space back so that you can reclaim it, so that it's not just full of kind of crap information. And frankly, like boosting the quote unquote boring stuff that's at least accurate and making sure that people are getting good information. So, it's one thing to be sarcastic and maybe wry about stuff. And I think that that's totally fine, but we also want to make sure that like there is good information. And so if you're going to make a parody of something, I think that's fine. If you want to make a parody of, say, somebody who's like a bad influencer or some of their content that's really bad, that's one way to do it. But just taking back those spaces and kind of boosting good content and thinking about how you can really just engage with more stuff that frankly might be kind of boring, or if it's not boring but it's good information, boosting that stuff and really just being more mindful about what your eyeballs are on.
Yeah. And what are some other ways other than like Google and social media to learn more about health and like understand your symptoms? Like, are there any websites you recommend, tools, etc.?
If people have questions about their health, the very first thing that I have to recommend is always talk to your doc. Go talk to your doc. I hope everybody's got a good doc, but that's not always the case, and it can be hard to have a conversation with a doc, especially one that feels like a stranger and you don't necessarily trust. There are some resources for teens in particular. That's not Those are things that I'd have to like look more into, and I don't feel comfortable necessarily just kind of rattling them off to people without kind of doing a bit more checking into them. But there are some good resources for teens. In general, I think, Googling your symptoms or whatever it might be, it can be a place to start, but also everybody needs to keep in mind that if you do that, it's going to pop back with you're dying. Whatever it is that you Google, it's always going to say that you're dying. You're not dying. You're likely not dying. Everything's mostly fine. So just be careful, even if you do Google your own your own symptoms. I'm sorry. It's probably going to come back with all kinds of very highly unlikely scenarios for you. keep in mind you're probably absolutely fine and you're probably going to be the most common thing, which is also, again, the most boring thing. But then, talking with any kind of professionals that you can find, so doctors, could be mental health providers, and seeing what kind of groups that they've got access to, because there are a lot of teen-only kinds of support groups, and also resources that a lot of physicians and providers in general will develop for teens specifically.